Hello everybody, today we're doing a video for GTA Car Kits in a 2012 Porsche Panamera, and today we're going to show you how to install our version 2 of our Apple CarPlay and Android Auto kit. As you can see, it's already installed into this car and it's paired to our iPhone wirelessly, and you can also now pair it to your Android phone wirelessly, which the version 1 didn't allow you to do. With the version 2, the installation became way simpler. You don't need to install an extra microphone, you don't need to install the extra big module, but you still get all the same great features of controlling the CarPlay or Android Auto with the original knob controls. You can control it with the touch screen. You will not lose any functionality from your original system. You can just press and hold the info button, and here everything stays the same. If your car is equipped with the original rear view camera, if you put the car into reverse, this image will go away and you'll see the camera. And now we're going to show you how to install it in this particular car. Tools that you're going to need is a T27 Torx on a ratchet, and we suggest to use a ratchet because the bolts that hold the radio in, they're very tight, and if you use a screwdriver with a Torx, it's going to be very hard to get them off, those bolts. You're going to need our panel removal tool, and this is our hook tool, and of course you're going to need our product. We're going to start with our panel removal tool, and we're going to remove this piece of the dashboard, and you're going to get underneath. In order to unclip it, it's just held on clips. Then there's a connection right here that you have to click. In order to disconnect it, there's a clip right here. So now we will remove the vent, and there's two main clips that hold it in. There's one on the side here. I'm going to show you once I remove the vent what I'm talking about. So I'm going to press it with my fingers, and I use this tool to move the vent up, and now I'm going to use this hook tool in order to unclip the second clip, and on the driver's side is done from the bottom. I'll show you what I mean once I remove it. So here I was pressing with my fingers this clip, you can reach from here, and then this one I was going in with my tool and I was going from the bottom and I was just squeezing it like that. So on the driver's side it goes from the bottom, on the passenger side you will be doing the exact same thing but from the top. And now you can just unclip this wire. You don't need to press any clips, you can just kind of pull on it and it will unclip. So now on the passenger side we have to remove this piece of the dashboard, and to do that we're just going to unlock the cup holder, and here is our tool, and you just get underneath, you work your way down, and it unclips. So it's again just held on clips. Here we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to press the clip with my finger, and I'm going to use our tool, and then here I'm going to go into the opening and release the clip from top. So as you can see on the passenger side I was just going from top and I was pulling it in like that. Same thing, there's a wire here and you just pull on it and remove it. So now we're going to be using our T27 Torx, and we're going to remove two bolts on each side, as you can see here. So now the stereo is ready to come out, and what you're going to do is turn the ignition on, make sure that your e-brake is on, and then you can move the shift lever down. That way there's enough space for the radio to come out. And we suggest to use some sort of cloth in order to protect your dashboard. So once you've done that, you can grab the stereo and carefully get it out over here on the side. And at this point you can put the car back in the park and turn off the ignition. So over here, these are all the connections that you have to disconnect. So we'll start with the main harness. There's a clip here that you have to squeeze, and then you can unlock the lock. These connections for the antennas, you have to press on the clip, and then you can use your panel removal tool to carefully get them out. Then these ones, you have to press the clip with your finger, same thing, use the tool to wiggle it out, and then this is the last one. And if you would have XM on your car, then you would have another antenna right here, but it would be exactly like this one. Same thing, you press on the clip and then remove it. So once we disconnected everything, we're ready to take this radio inside and show you how to install our circuit board inside of the stereo. So now this is our stereo that we removed, and in order to install our product, you're going to need the panel removal tool, and this is a T8 Torx on a screwdriver. So now we're going to show you what comes in our kit. So you're going to have your main circuit board, which we're going to install inside the stereo. Then there's two flat cables. There's the wireless antennas. This is a main harness that will get installed at the back of the stereo, and then we'll connect the original harness here from the car. You also have your USB cable. This is for wired CarPlay and wired AndroidAuto, and also to do your updates that will be done through this port. And then these last two wires will also get installed inside our stereo. And then you get these metal extensions in order to install the circuit board inside the stereo. So you have 3 long ones and 3 short ones. So if your car doesn't have XM, you're only going to be using these 3 long ones. If you have XM, you're going to be making 3 extra long ones by attaching these short ones inside the long ones. So our stereo doesn't have XM, so we'll only use these ones. So by using our T8 Torx, we're going to start disassembling the stereo. So we'll start with the top of the stereo. There are 2 T8 Torx bolts. We'll flip the stereo over, and there are 2 additional bolts right here. Something to know that all the bolts that we're going to remove are all the same, except these ones that are at the bottom of the stereo. These are the shortest ones that you're going to find, so make sure to put them at the right spot when you're assembling everything back. Then at the back of the stereo here, you're going to see these 3 T8 Torx right here, which you have to remove. And right here we're going to remove this one. This is in order for us to have some space to feed our wires inside the stereo. So as you can see, you have this blocker piece because this car doesn't have XM. So if you would have XM, you would do the same thing, but you would remove the antenna and you would just let it hang and remove it. And if you would have an antenna, you would unscrew the same bolt and you would just pull the antenna out in order to have the space. Now we will detach the faceplate of the stereo from the body of the stereo, and because we removed the bolts, it's only held on clips now. So there's these chrome little clips. There's one right here at the bottom and one right there in the middle. Same on the other side. So the easiest thing that you can do is kind of flip the stereo over while pulling on the face of the stereo. You press on the clips at the same time. So this is one side. This is the second side. And as you can see, without even pressing the bottom one, it came off. And here we're going to use our hook tool in order to unclip these 2 clips in order to release our flat cables. There you go. So I was just getting underneath them. That way they release. So now the radio is flipped over. This is the bottom of the stereo. This is our CD changer, and we're gonna hold the top of the stereo with our fingers, and then we're gonna push with our thumbs or our hands. And over here on the side, you're gonna see that the radio slides. And once it's all the way there, you can just lift it up and separate it. And we're gonna suggest you keep this connected. You can still do the whole installation without disconnecting this. Now inside, there's 3 bolts that we have to undo right now. There's one right here, one over there, and one right here. So we'll start with this one. Now you will take these post extensions or spacers and you will screw them in instead of the bolts that you just removed. So because this radio doesn't have XM, we're going to be just using the long ones. So once you put them inside, make sure they're straight, and then you can carefully screw them in. You don't need to really tighten them. You just gotta make sure that they go in straight and on their thread. So now we will take these two cables that came in our kit, and our goal is to feed them through this hole and have them on the inside of the stereo. There's one. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of squeezing them sideways for them to fit in. Next, you're gonna feed your two antennas through the same opening. We're gonna take these gold ends. There you go. So before putting our circuit board inside of the stereo, we're gonna pre-install these two cables that came with your kit. These are going on the side that will connect to the back of the display. So you gotta make sure that you insert them all the way in and that they're straight, and only then you lock them in place. And the blue portion has to be facing this way. So you unlock it and then you put it all the way in, and then you lock it in place. So now before screwing the circuit board inside the stereo, we have to make these connections. This is the best way to do it. So we'll first connect the antennas, and you just clip them on. And if they're connected well, they're just going to be able to rotate like this. Then you have to connect these two wires. So we'll start with the bigger one. So the row where you can see the silver parts, that's the one that has to be facing up. So that's all the way in. Now we can do the other one. Now you can remove some of the slack of the wires. And then over here, the last two cables that you have to connect are the original ones that we disconnected from the back of the screen. So once you line up the circuit board with the holes, we're just gonna put back the 3 bolts. And again, you don't really need to over tighten them. Just make sure that they're going in straight and not sideways. And the last one is right here. These two wires, you can use these open slots and feed them through so they're outside the body of the stereo. And these ones, you just undo the clip, put them in all the way in, and clip them in. So now we can start assembling everything back. We're going to take this portion of the stereo, we're going to line it up so that these little things go into the lock positions, and then you can slide the stereo CD changer portion forward to lock in place. So we have our two antennas here. What we're going to do is just wrap them up, and we're going to secure them at the back of the stereo here to make sure that they're not sticking out. And we're going to use a piece of clear tape to hold them in. So you gotta make sure that they're not gonna get cut when you're putting the stereo back, and here that you have enough space to put the bolts back. So like this is good. So this is our main harness, and we're gonna unclip it and put it in. Once it's almost all the way in, you lock it in, and then here there's this small wire that will connect to our wire which we brought out from the back of the stereo. And at this point, as you notice, we didn't do any other bolts. We just secured the motherboard inside, or the circuit board. And it's a good time to take the stereo back to your car and connect the original harness here, and make sure that the stereo turns on, that the touchscreen is working, and then you can bring it back here and assemble everything back and put the bolts back. But now we're going to go ahead and test it. Again, for testing, this is our harness and this is the original harness. You'll just put them in together. You're going to press this left button right here. So it's already a good sign. The logo and the screen looks the way it was before. And the touchscreen is working. The rest of the functions will not work because none of the antennas are connected, but this is good enough for our test. Now we can disconnect the stereo and take it back to assemble all the bolts back. So now, after our successful test, we'll assemble the stereo back. We'll start from the back of the stereo and just put the bolts into the original holes and screw them in. Over here, remember we unscrewed our blocker for the antenna. You can choose to put the bolt back or not. We'll just put ours back. And if you have XM, you would just leave the XM antenna hanging here, and then once you reconnect it back in the car, it's fine that it's not tied to the body of the stereo. There's 2 more bolts right here. Now we'll flip the stereo over, and you should end up with 2 short bolts like we mentioned before, and they go at the bottom of the stereo. So now the stereo has been fully assembled, and now we can install it inside our car. So before putting the stereo back in, we're gonna install this USB cable. So we will feed it through here. So you gotta go past the glove box, and there's an opening where we're gonna take this end. We'll put it in, and we'll catch it on the inside. So here's our cable. You can see we have it at the back of the stereo. That's our goal. Then you can pull it all the way through so that this USB is just a little end peeks out. Nobody will even notice it. So now we will reinstall the original bolts that hold the stereo in. So now we're ready to put our vents back in. So before you do that, you have to make sure you connect the original wires here. Some of these models don't have it, but this one does, so you have to reconnect it back. And carefully put it in. Make sure that this rubber goes in nicely. Now for the passenger side, same thing. First do the connection. Make sure that when you're putting it in, you're not going to damage the wire. Now we can put in this piece from the dashboard. Over here on the driver's side, you will have to connect this wire back. And then you can put this panel in. So we assembled everything back. As you can see, we put the radio into the auxiliary source in order to hear stuff from CarPlay or AndroidAuto, and we're simply going to connect our iPhone by the wire. You can also connect it wirelessly. So we will unlock our phone. As you can see, we have CarPlay displaying. So you're going to test that the touchscreen is working. Also going to test some music. The music is working, and at this point the installation is complete. Again, this was a video for GTA Car Kits in a Porsche Panamera. I hope you liked the video, and we'll see you next time.